Hello, welcome back guys. And in previous video we created a table component and then we passed those data dynamically in the table component, and we were able to see that book list over there, right? Now in this video we have to resolve couple of issues which we saw in that table component, and without wasting much time, let's get back into code. So I'll go here. Now you can see here I have loaded couple of data in the book table, book collection, so that all those details can be listed over here. So you can say totally we have 18 record over there, right? And then you can see here first issue is there with the price column. Okay, so this price is actually getting, it's getting breaked and coming on the next line. So actually this should be coming here just after dollar symbol, and then we don't have actions as well there, so we should have actions so that we should be able to click on this item and then it should work accordingly. Instead of that action, even we can put certain kind of events on this specific item as well. Let's say if you want to just click on this item, then it will open, right? So that also we can do, but let's do that in action so that even by mistake if you click on this item, it should not open, right? So for that we are just going to say, okay, we need one more column over there and that should be action. And how we are going to do that, let's go back in client and src. So we'll go back in views folder in the book list page. Okay, so here we are going to say, okay, we should have one more column over there and the name is going to be action. So I'll say action. Okay, and here also I'm going to say action, but sort is not going to be true, so I'll say false, and the sort key, let it be there as action. Anyway, this is not going to make any difference, right? So icon will also not be there, and then show icon is going to be false because this show icon we have configured it for shouting icon, so you can make it as false. Of course this name should be actually a specific. This is my fault, you should name it as per the specific functionality, so it should be visible actually. Now let me just save it and then see if this specific icon which we have used here should get the position of the slot, not the position but should get the empty space of the container. Okay, let me go back in UI and then you can see here those icons are visible over there, right? But then we need to put some CSS over there to make it more attractive, you can say. So for that what I'm going to do is you can see we have BG blue and BG red. So what I'm going to do is I will just go inside the theme folder and globally I'm going to define those BG red and BG green. So I'll say BG red, and then in this case I'm going to say, okay, background color is going to be red, right? And then we have one more BG green. So I'll say, let's say background color is going to be green, right? Let me save it and see if that works. That works actually, but green is still not applied. So what we'll do that, we'll go back in book list page and here we can see view is there and delete is there, right? So we need certain kind of design over there so that it should work in a specific way. But before that, let's rectify these price issues, right? So what I'll do is I'll go back in component and app table. There we can see ellipsis cell is there, right? So I'll just search for that here, and here I can say display should be flex, so that the text would come just after the symbol. Okay, let me save it and go back to UI. I'll just refresh the page and see if that works. Okay, it's working, but still it's breaking on the next line. So what can be the issue? All right, when I hover on this is actually working. Then we should not put that code here in the hover. Instead I need to cut it from here. What I'll say is, okay, I need to apply this in the normal condition as well. So I'll say spawn dot and ellipsis right? Dot cell, and I'm going to put that here. Let me save it and see if that works. Yeah, that works. So this is how we are going to do it, and then we need to design action as well over there. So this time I should not be there actually. So what wrong we are doing there? Let me come here on the slot. Okay, and here we are using those action icons, right? So we don't have to care about this because this is coming from slot, right? So of course there won't be any issue here. So what we will do here is we'll go back to book list page and we'll see what icon we are applying over there. Okay, so icon I outline is there, but this time trash bin should get applied. So I'll apply this trash bin outline so that we can have a trash bin icon over there. Let me go back and you can see that. Okay, that is fine. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to design this action button, and I will design it of course on the main CSS file, that is of course in this case variable.css. So I'll say okay, but here what we need to do is we want, let's say, action button of size, width and height. So I'll say width, and what value should we give here? So I will, let's say, give 20 pixel. No, that's going to be too small, right? So I'll say okay. I will say, let's say 24, right? And then height is also going to be 24, right? Now next I'm going to say okay, background color is going to be, let's say, by default RGB, and I'm going to say 123, right? And then here I'm going to say 127, and then I'm going to say 128. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to put margin, and then from the top I will give 0, and then from the left and right I will use 5 pixel, right? And then I will add padding as well. So I'll say, let's say 5 pixel or all around its border, right? And then border radius, let's make it 5 pixel from all of its corners, and then inside color, text color is going to be white. So let me save it and let's see if that works. Yeah, it works actually, right? So now this is showing gray, but then if I'm applying BG red over there, then this color should pick up this color so that it will be of a specific color. I'll just save it and let's go back. You can see a red icon over there, and then we have this default icon gray as well there. So what next we are going to do here is, okay, background color red. Why this red is not getting applied? Actually, we need to debug that and see. Okay, we are putting blue there, right? It should not be blue. Okay, we need blue actually, but we created green. So instead of green I'll say okay, BG blue should also be there. So I'll say BG blue, and then in that case background is going to be blue, but I'll just use RGB for that. It doesn't look good since it's a deep blue, so I'll use this color actually. Fine, let me save that and see if that is working fine. So BG blue is there, that's completely fine. Let me save that and go back to UI. I'll just refresh the page. Still the color is not getting applied. I will just say okay, if this color, if someone is using this color, right, if any of the element is using this color explicitly, I will make it important so that this color will override all those other color which is already applied there. So I'll just say save and then go back. You can see now it is visible, right? So now on click of this icon, actually we should be able to redirect node. We should be able to load the page. Okay, which page we are going to load? Of course, add book page, and then the ID should be there. So based on the ID, it should load all the details of the specific book, and then it should automatically populate over there, right? For that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this, and you can see we are redirecting to this page, and id is also there in the url params. That's cool. But then why we need this? Because in the case of edit, we are going to use this id and then trigger one more api from here, and that will be of course get book by id, right? So using that id we will take all those book details, and then we'll by default populate those book details here, and then we should be able to update that as well. So let's go back quickly in the code, and I'll go back here in the book list page, right? Not book list, this time I'll go back in add book page, since we are loading this add book page. So here what I'll say, okay, action is there, I need getter as well, so I'll say okay, map getters, right? But this time I'm going to use bookstore getters, and then I'll say get opened book. So let's see if that get opened book is there or not. Let me inspect that. And this is how you can debug your application. So I'll go back in bookstore, opened book is null. Actually when we click on that specific book item, it should redirect here, and then we should have open book data over there. At least we should have id over there, so based on the id we should be able to load the data. But still that's not going to be issue. So in this case what I'm going to say is okay, we'll go back in add book, and then we need of course getters, and actions is already there. So save book is there, so this time I'll say get book, I'll say get book by id. Okay, so here I'll say same method. If let me just cross verify if that method exists over there. So get book by id, yes it exists there, right? So I'll go back to add book page again, and here I'm going to say the same thing, get book by id. Now I should be able to trigger this functionality here, and where we are going to call this api. Of course this api we should call inside mounted, because in the previous video we know that what is mounted, and if you're not aware of this you can go back to previous video and see. But for now I'm just giving a small definition of it. Mounted is one of the life cycle method where that specific method will only be triggered or called when whole of its UI, that means template design, is ready, right? So then if template design is ready, we should be able to call those APIs. So I'll say okay, in this case async, and then I should be able to use await as well. So I'll say await this dot get book by id, right? But here we need to provide the id, so I'll say okay, underscore id will be there, and what is going to be the id? So id we need to take it out from where? We need to take it out from the params. So I'll say this dot dollar, and how can we access params? We already know that, right? In the previous video I have already said that how we are going to use. So I'll say route, not router, because using route we can access those properties. So I'll say this dot route dot params dot, and then the book id, not id will be there, right? Because we are using id in the router. So I'll just click save, and then once the page refreshes, that API should get called. It's not getting called, right? So let me just refresh this page, and let's see if that API is getting called. Still get all books is getting called. Actually this should call the API related to get book by id. So here get books is getting called, so I'll just rename it by get book by id, and then of course data filters is there. So I'll just refresh and then go back to UI. You can see undefined. Why is that? So books is there, but id is not coming over there. Why? Even though this id is getting passed over here as a filters. And how can you verify that? I will say let's go back to add page, and then here you are calling this function, so you are providing those underscore id there, right? And this dot dollar route, and how can you verify route? In route you have those ids, so just go back to here, you can see dollar route is there, right? So just open that, and then open the params, you can see id over there, right? It is there. So then what's the issue? That means issue is with API. So I'll go back in API, and I will open this API. So in get book by id I can see data is there, okay, data dot underscore id should be there, or data dot id, but still it is not taking those IDs. So why is that? So let's debug that code in the UI. And how we can debug? We just need to go in source folder, right? And here I'll search for the file. I'll just press Ctrl P and I will search, let's say, first actions file, and this time it is going to be action of bookstore, right? So here what I'll do is I'll just click debug pointer here and I will refresh the page and we'll see that actually what is happening over there. Okay, at least this functionality is getting triggered, right? But here we can see, okay, fine. So that is the issue actually. I got it. This filters is nothing but not the actual filters. It will have app options headers as well. So but we need to take out the data only, right? So I'll go back in actions and I'll say, okay, filters dot data. I'll save it, go back here, and then in the network tab we should be able to see those APIs. See, we can see here, okay, the books and then the slash, and this is of course the get API. We have those IDs here, and then if I'll click on response, we can see, not response, I'll say preview, we can see data over there, right? Now this data should have binded to the specific, specific input, but it is not yet binded. Why? And if I'll go back in DevTools, Vuex, and there also we should be able to see those data. You can see get opened book, and in that we have book data, right? But in this case also this opened book should not have book actually, okay? So what I need to do is I need to go back into action method here, and here what I'm going to say is opened book. I will say data dot, let's say, book. Let me save it and go back to UI, okay, and we'll see if that works. So let me just open this once more, opened book, and it's coming undefined, book is not there. So let me just revert this, I'll save it, and book dot data is we are passing here. So set opened book. If we'll go in mutation, we'll see what is happening over there. So set opened book is there, fine. So here what we are doing, okay, book we are doing here. So instead of book we should actually do dot dot dot. That means we are going to destructure the property of book, right? No, destructure, you can say, spread all those properties present inside the book. And now let me go back and see if that works. So I'll click on bookstore. Now I'll click on this opened book. You can see all those detail over there. But then why this is not binded to the specific UI element, right? So for that I'll say, okay, go back in add book page, and here what we need to do is, till this point of time we have all those data ready, right? We have data coming from API, and once that is done, that means what we will do here is we will say, okay, we have book object over there, so the same data need to be assigned to the book. So I will say, okay, you will have that book data. Next what I will be doing here is I will say this dot book equals to this dot book equals to the book. I will take it from the getters. So I'll say get opened book, and how I can do that, I need to use the getter for that. So I'll go back in getters file, I'll just copy this function, come back here, and I will paste it here, right? Not this is actually getter, so I need to put it inside getter, not the action. That is wrong. So we don't have getter over here. For that what I'm going to do is, okay, getters I have imported but I have not used. So we all know that how we can use map getters here. So 3 dot will be there, and then it will spread all those getter function. Now here we just need to provide bookstore, since we are using bookstore here, and then I will put the name of the methods, right? Now our getter method is mapped, and then we should be able to use this getter just down below here. So I'll say this dot get opened book, right? So this will assign all those data to this specific book, right? But if we are going to do this, that means it will assign the data by call by reference, right? So as soon as this book data will change, the store data will also get changed. That is not what we are expecting, right? The store data should have actual data, and then this book data should be, copy of that data. So for that, I'm just going to cut it from here, and I'll say, okay, just destructure it, so that we can break the, you know we can break the call by reference, and it will be copied as a value, right? Let me save it and then see if that works. You can see all of those data has been binded here successfully, and then we should be able to call this update, and then update functionality should be working fine, right? Let me just refresh the page and show you once again if that works. Yeah, you can see that all those data get binded over here, right? And then you have again, okay, now there's one issue. When I click on this, login is now this is showing login. Why? Because as soon as the page refresh, we lose all the states, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here, and I will say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to create one more folder over here, and I'll name it service. Okay, it already exists. Then I'll just go inside the service. Why we are going to do this? Agenda of doing this is I will create a file over there that will, deal all the data with the local storage, so that we can persist those data. Even though we are going to refresh the page as well, it won't lose its state. The data will be there in local storage, and then again you will be able to use those data, right? So what I'll say is, okay, create a local storage service. So I'll say local storage service.js, right? So here I'll say, okay, export class. This time I'm going to use class for this JavaScript. So I'll say export class storage service, right? And then here I'll say, okay, I will have a couple of functions. So let's say I'll say save data, and then I'll say key and then value. Since we all know that the data which we are going to save in local storage should have key as well as value, so it will be saved in the format of key and value pairs. That is of course in the object format, right? So I'll say, okay, that's fine. Let's do that. I'll say local storage dot set item, and then I will use the key and then the value, but the value which we are going to set should be a stringified value. That is mandatory. So I'll say JSON dot stringify this value, right? The data is now saved in local storage, and finally we should get those data as well. So I'll create one more function, get data, right? Actually we should not use save data. Let's be more specific. I'll say save data to local storage, right? And then get data from, or we cannot say local, because we will say just save data to storage. Instead of that, we'll say just persist data, which means that data is persisted actually. And then I'll say get data, get persisted data, okay, persisted data, and then I'll just pass the key, and then based on the key we should be able to get those data back. So here what I'm going to say is, okay, constant data, it will be coming from again local storage. Local storage is one API available in JavaScript. You can go through that API, and we have get item method over there. So in that we just need to pass the key, right? So once we'll pass the key, and then what I'm going to say is, okay, if data is there, so return data is there, then I'll just parse those data, because at the time of saving those data I just stringified that data, right? So I'll say parse, and then I'll provide this data, or else just return null. Cool. So I will save it, and then what I'm going to do is I'll just go back, okay, export class storage service, right? Instead of using this class, let's use closure. So I'll say constant, not export, I'll just use constant storage service equals to, and then I'm going to use arrow. And here also we need to say something. I can say constant, and then let's say I'll make it as an arrow function. So this is completely legal now. So here also I'll say constant, and then I'll say equals to, and I will use arrow function. This is how you can create an arrow function. You must know that, right? So here I'm going to expose this function persist data and get persisted data, right? Then finally I'm just going to export it. And how can I export this? I'll say okay, export default, okay, and storage service, so that we don't need to make this, I mean, use this bracket to initialize this closure and then use that. Instead we'll just import that and then it will be working as it is. So I'll just save it, and then where I should go, I'll go back in actions method where we are saving all those data, right? So not action but the mutation, since we are mutating all those data from here. So once we'll save those data, I'll say okay, just import that storage functionality. So I'll say storage local storage service, right? So local storage service, and then here I'll say don't use local storage service, but I'll say just use the name as storage service, right? So now I should be able to use this storage service and save all those data to the local storage. We'll see that in action. So I'll say local storage service dot persist data, and here I'm just going to say state dot books. No, first thing we need key. So in this case, of course, I'm going to say books, and then I'm going to say of course state dot, or else we can say just directly books, right? So the data we are saving here, and the same thing I'm going to do here as well, right? Not books, this time I'm going to use state.books, since state.books will have the latest data. So next what I'm going to do here is I'll say set opened book, and here also I'm going to set the opened book data over there. I'll say opened book instead of books. So opened, let's say book, and here I'm going to use state.opened book. Fine. I'll just save it, and then I'll go back in getter, right? So getter, actually when our application refresh, right, the state will lose its value. Basically Vuex will lose its value, right, lose its data, but those data is already present there in the in local storage. We all know that since we did that recently. And then if that is the case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say okay, go back in application whenever that this application refreshes, right? So in that case, in the application file itself, we are going to load all those data from the local storage and assign those data back to the let's say bookstore. And how we are going to do that, let's see that. So once application is mounted, right, so in that case only we are going to do all these kind of things. So here I'm going to say just let's say constant books, for example, right? But when we don't need books, we just need to of course we don't need book data for now, since every page we are moving, or in every page we are going to trigger the API related to books, and we'll be getting the latest data. But in case of login, since that data has to be persisted for sure, so I'll just go back in auth store, and what I did here is I'll just copy that from here, and I'll go back in auth store, and where should I go? In mutation, right? So here I'm going to set logged in user. So I'll say logged in user, and then I'll save the state dot logged in user, right? And then we need to use this logged in user somewhere in the getter. So whenever application refreshes, this logged in user data should be loaded to the application, and so that application does know that the user has already been logged in there, right? So for that I'm going to go back in application, and I will say okay, we need to load user data. So I'll say let's say user data, and I will take all those data from the local storage, not local storage directly, but I'll use a storage service here, storage service. I'll name it a storage service, okay, and then I'll say storage service dot get persisted data, but this time I need logged in user, right? So now we have logged in user data. What I can do here is I will just import mutations. Now this time I'm going to use, previously we saw how we can use mutations, map actions and map getters, but this time I'm going to use map mutations, right? And then this I'm going to import from where? Of course I'm going to import it from Vuex, right? And then this should also be mapped to where? In the methods block, like this, methods, right? Now we have methods over here. We are going to use map mutations, and first parameter we need to provide the name of the mutation, name of the store. So I'll say in this case auth store, right? And then I'm going to use the mutation method name here. So let's say I'm going to use what? Set user data. Okay, set, or you can say set logged in user, right? And then here you need to provide the mutation name, and when I'll go back to mutation, I can see this is the name of the mutation. So I'll just copy this name from here, I'll go back in app.view, and then I'll paste that same name here, and we all know that this is the actual name which is present there in mutation, but this is the alias name, so we can use the alias name here. I'll say set logged in user, and then I'll provide the user data over there, right? So we are done now. All right, let me save it, and then once we log in, we should be able to save those data in the local storage, and then again if the page refresh as well, those data should not get vanished, or we should not lose those data. So let's see that in action. I'll go back in UI, and then first I need to log in. Now I need to do one more thing over here. So since we are login, right? So once we just click on login, and if it is successful, we need to redirect to a certain page. And in this case, in our case, we should redirect to book list page, since we don't have any other page over there, right? So what I'll do is I'll go back here in the login, auth store here, right? We have dispatch over there, that's completely fine. But if I'll come back in the auth folder in the views, and then I'll come here. So as soon as let me just put await over here, so that we can know, okay, if this is successful or not. So once this is successful, means we should be able to call next piece of code, or this will call next piece of code. Otherwise, if it is failed, that means the next execution won't happen, because we are rejecting the error from the interceptor, right? So I will just say here, if it is successful, just use router object, right? And then go to this page, books, okay? Let me save it, and then we'll try to log in this time. Let me just copy this URL, okay? And I'll just close this tab. I'll close all these tabs since I don't need that, and I'll say paste. You can see by default we are coming here, but even that should not be the case. By default we should be coming actually to the login page, okay? So what I'll do here is I will go back in router. You all know that how you can change that, right? So router is responsible for routing all the page, and also here you can see path is empty and it is loading home page. But on home page we don't have anything, right? Since we have all those data inside these pages. So I will say, okay, whenever you come on this home page, just redirect. So for that I'll say redirect right? I'll say redirect it to slash, let's say login, right? And I'll save it, and let's go back in UI and see if that works. Yeah, it works actually, right? And you are also able to see that login. But now let me open inspector tool as well, so that we should be able to see if data is being saved in the local storage or not. So for that you need to go here in the application, and in the application tab you have local storage over there. So if I'll click on local storage, you can see as of now we have just opened book, but later on we'll remove this as well, because if we are not logged in, there should not be any single data stored there. Okay, so that is it for now, and then I will just try to log in. Let's say I'll put the email and password, right? And I'll click on login. Once I click on login, you can see we have logged in successfully, and then here book list page is showing. Also we are directly coming to this list page, right? No, but one more thing we can see here is the detail is still not saved. Why is that so? Let's go back to console. We can see cannot read property of undefined. Okay, that's completely fine, but where's the issue exactly? Set logged in user is not defined. Set logged in user is not defined. Okay, so that's the wrong things. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll go back in app.view. You can see we have used set logged in. Actually we should use like this, since we are going to access all of its properties, all of its functionalities, methods or computed properties or data using this keyword, right? So we should use this to access all of those, and then I'll just refresh the page. I'll go back here. Okay, then before that let me okay, let me just remove it, and I'll click refresh. Now we are directly coming back to login, and then after login successful we should be able to see those data here. So I'll say that divsend21@gmail.com, right? And then I'll say password, and I'll click on enter, login. We are able to log in successfully, and we are able to come back here on the book list page, but still I cannot see those data saved here. Why is that so? Let's debug that. Why is that happening, right? What we can see here, this dot logged in user is not a function. Again we are facing those same issues. Let me just let's debug that. Why is that happening? So this should be u, because we have defined u here. Let me save it and get persisted data. Okay, that's completely fine. But then if we clicked on logged in, right, so in that case this mutation will get called, right? Set logged in user, and there we are setting this value, that is a storage service persisted data logged in user. That's completely fine. Then why we are not getting those data? So storage service, did we define? No, we have not defined a storage service here, and then we are calling the function. That's the wrong thing which we are doing. So we need that storage service also there in the mutation, so that it can access the storage service and save its data. Let me just save it again once more, and I'll go back in UI, and then you can see this data is getting loaded. That's completely fine, but this time this data is getting loaded without logged in as well. That is the issue, right? And why is that issue? Because even though you have not logged in, your data is showing there. That means anyone can come on this page and see your data. That's security concern, right? So we'll resolve that security concern in the upcoming videos, and how we are going to do that, we'll see that. But for now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, let's go back to 8100, right, home page, and verify if we have those data, logged in data. We don't have logged in data as well there. It's actually empty, right? So let me just logged in once more. I'll say okay, login. Now you can see we have all of its login data here, and if I'll click on this, you can see all those data here, right? Now even if I'll refresh this page, the data should be there, it won't get vanished. Let me just refresh the page. Data is there, you can see it's not vanished, and if I'll click on this, we are no more seeing that login because we have already logged in, and until we'll click on logout, that should not be there. So let's provide logout option as well here so that we can manually clear all these things, and then we should be able to redirect to login page. This way our application will work in a smooth way, right? And this is how it should be working. So for that, what we need to do is, of course, we need to provide one more item here, and that will be logout. So how we can do that? We know that we have defined the menu options over here, right? Books is there, and then now this time we'll have one more item, and then it is going to be logout. So I'll say logout, but this time we cannot use velse. That already I discussed at the time of when I created this an item, right? So this time now we are facing these issues. So we have to put vif in all of those item which depends on login functionality. So instead of that, I believe we can wrap this, whatever depends on this logged in user, we can wrap those inside a single, let's say, div, right? And whether that works, let's see. Okay, velse should be there, so I'll just remove this velse from here as well, right? I'll put velse here. Okay, so now if logged in is there, means this books will be there, and then we'll be having logout as well. So this logout will do nothing, but it will just route you to the logged in page. So I'll say let's route it back to the login, but this time I'm going to say just use logout text instead of login. So how I'm going to do that? I'm going to say, okay, no, not router link. This time I'm going to say just use a click functionality. So I'll attach a click listener here, and I'll say logout, fine. So now what this logout will do, we need to define that logout down below. Also we need to change the text. So I'll say logout text, right? So I'm just going to define logout text here. So logout text, let's say logout text, and this should be coming from the constant file logout text, right? So here I'm going to say that logout text, right? Just go back to this file, constant file, and here I'll copy paste. I'll say logout text, right? And then I'll provide the actual value logout. So far we are good, right? Now we can export this logout text, and we can use that logout text here, right? This is completely fine. And then here what I'm going to say is I'm going to define one function, and the name is going to be, of course it is going to be inside method block, and the name of the function is going to be logout. So logout, right? What this function will do, actually this function will log out all those, clear all those data, auth store data. So how we can do that? For that we are going to, let's say, we are going to create one functional mutation in the auth store, and here I'm going to say clear storage, you can say clear data, right? And then here we will have state, and we don't need the second parameter over here, so I'll say just state, right, equals to, let's say, get default state. If that works, let's see. So let me save it, right? I'll just say okay, this should work actually. So now what I'll do, also this should clear the storage item as well. So I'll say storage service dot clear. So clear means it should clear whole data, and then for that I need to go into storage service and define a clear method over there as well. So I'll say clear, and this time we don't need any parameter over here, so I'll just say local storage dot clear. It will delete all those data which resides in the local storage, correct? And we also need to expose this method out of this closure, so we should be able to use that anywhere we want. So now we are done with this mutation method as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say okay, that's completely fine, legal. I'll go back here, I'll just call those mutation method. And how we are going to call mutation, of course we know we need to import map mutations as well. So I'll say map mutations, since we are not going to mutate a state variable directly, we need to use mutations for that. So I'll import that, and then in the method section I'll say map mutations, right? We need to provide first parameter as the book names, not book name, sorry, it's going to be a store name. So I'll say auth store in this case, and then the method. So method name is, I believe, clear all. That's what I defined. Clear data, sorry. So here I'll say okay, clear those all data. So for that I'll say clear all, not clear all, let's be more specific. I'll say clear auth store, okay, and then I will name it as a clear data, right? That's as simple as that. And then here I'll say this dot clear auth store, and then finally once auth store is cleared, I just need to route you to the login page. So I'll say router dot push, right? This is how we are able to log in. So I'll say route to login page. Let me just save it and go back to UI, and let's see if that works. So this is completely working fine. We have all those 18 data, since I have created a lot of data in the DB collections. If I'll go back in collection, you can see this all data I created, okay? So that all data is showing here. We are not paginating as of now. We are showing all data at once. But then if I'll just click refresh as well, let me just refresh the page. We are not losing any state, and then we are showing that options over here. But in this case we have logout as well. So if I'll click logout, it should actually clear all those data, and then we should be able to redirect to login page. That is how application works, right? So let's test that. I'll just click on logout, and yeah, it is actually able to perform its functionality, but the login page is coming on top of the previous page. That's not the expectation, right? So what error we are getting over there, let's see that first. So still we are getting this error, class list. And why is that so? That is related to the input element, but why we are getting that here, right? So okay, we'll check that later, but actually we are not expecting this kind of behavior over here. This page should go, and then we should be able to retry. Okay, do one thing, instead of pushing those routes here, right, what we will do here is we'll just refresh the page and then push back the login page here. So I'll say this dot, and how we can do refresh. So what we can do here is we can force page to refresh. So how we can do that? For that, there's method. So we need to search for the method reload page in Vue.js, let's say. So we should have a function. Okay, we have router.go. So let's see and do that. So I'll say this dot router.go, right? Or else, instead of pushing this login page, what I'll do is I'll just say route back to home page, and then it should be working, I believe. Let's see. So yeah, it is working actually. So what I'll do is I'll just click refresh, and then you are still able to see those page, because the thing is data depends on logged in user, but logged in user is there. That means this data is not cleared when you clicked on logout. So let me click on logout, Still the data is not cleared. Why is that so? I'll go back here and then I'll just check if that functionality is even getting triggered or not. So what I'll do here is I'll go in home page, right? And then here I'll just attach this listener and then here as well. So once I'll click logout, it should come here. This is actually coming here. This dot clear auth store is getting called, and then this mutation should also get called. So once I'll go in mutation auth store, and then we can see here, and then if I'll click play, so we can see here this state is there, but then get default state is also there. So if I'll just click on play, that's completely fine. So I believe our state data should be vanished. So let me verify that. But storage data it is still not able to cleared. So let's go back in auth store, and okay, it is there still. So how can we do that? We should go back in mutations actually, not here. I'll go back in auth store, mutation, and this storage service dot clear is one of the functionality, right? So I'll say, let's say clear all, right? And then this time what it will do is, let's go inside the storage function, and here just do local storage dot clear, use clear all. I just renamed it, and if I'll see that if that name is getting collided before. So actually this should clear the whole storage. Okay, removes all key value pairs. That is completely fine, and it should work in the expected way actually. So let me just refresh the page. Okay, and here again I'll go back in application, and I can see data over there in the local storage, and I'll click on logout, and then it should actually log out of the application. So let me again open the application. Yeah, you can see we lose all those data since the data has been cleared. Now if I'll click on this, you can see still the book list and logout is there. That means this data is not reflecting over here, even though we are able to switch, right? So let's verify that if that data exists in stored as well. How can we do that? We need to go inside DevTools to verify if that data is there, and if it is there means we need to clear those data as well, so that we don't need to rely on those data. So I'll go back in auth store, and then I can see here it is there. And how is that even possible, since we lose those data, right? Then from where this data is actually coming, let me just refresh this. From where this data is coming actually, it should actually clear this data as well. So that means this mutations is not working properly, it's not assigning the default state. So how we can do that? So in this case I'm going to say, okay, state is going to be ... right, and I'll say get default state, right? Then it should it should provide all the default data to this specific store, and then it should be working fine. Let me just save it and go back to UI. Let's see if that works. So auth store, we can see now it is null, right? We don't have any data over there. And then if I'll click on this, but still we can see this data over there. Why? Because let me go back here, we can see logged in user as empty object, because here we need to verify in the mutations when we are saving those data logged in users, right? By default this should not be an empty object. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check if object.keys, right? If object.keys, right? And then here I'll provide state.logged in user. I hope you are getting it all what we are trying to do here, right? So if it has keys, and then the length of the keys is greater than 0, that means that object will have keys. In that case only we are going to assign this user logged in data, or else we are not going to assign that at all. Okay, I'll just save it and let's go back here. What I'll do here is I'll just delete this for now. Let's refresh the page and then it should be working in the expected way. If I'll click on it, still we can see book list and logout is there. Why is that so? Actually we our expectation is it should show not get logged in user, that means logged in user is still there, that's why this else is getting executed. And let's see that why is that happening. So if we'll go back in application, we can see there's no local storage data over there, that's completely fine. But when it comes to view, and if I'll click on auth store, we can see empty object over there, right? So logged in user is actually the empty object over there. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to go back in here. Actually that should be assigned with null value, right? Then why it's not assigning with the null values? So let's go back in mutations or in getters, and here we can say why it's coming as object or state should have the null value, then object should not be there at all. So for now I'll just since there's two variable only, so I'll just copy this, and even that is not required. So logged in user should be actually null, and then user ID should also be null, but instead I can see empty object over there. That's not the expectation. Let me just refresh the page and see once more what is happening over there. So still that auth store, that means we need to go back in app view, because there also we are assigning the same thing. So here we can say, okay, if there's no user data, right, so you don't need to assign anything. So I just need to check, okay, object dot keys, or else instead of checking it here, I'll just go here, inside get persisted data, and here itself I will check those things. But I think the data is coming over there, null is not coming, that's why we are getting these issues, right? So what we need to do is we need to just verify if data, right, if data is there, then only we are going to return JSON dot parse and then the data, right? And if data is not there, in that case we'll just return null. So now it should be working, let's see. And even if also it won't work, then we have to find a different way. So still it's coming like this. Let's debug that. Okay, so in this case I'm going to go back on app.view, and then I'll put a debug pointer over there, and let's refresh the page, and we will see if that is the culprit. So you can see user data is coming as a null. It's coming as a null, right? So this dot set logged in user should be set as null. That means if I'll go back in set logged in user, where's that set logged in user? Here data is coming as a null, and then we are structuring those data over here, which is of course a issue. So in this case I'm going to say if not data, right, so we should just return, if not data, just return it from here, no need to go ahead and do rest of the functionality. Let me refresh the page and then see what happens next. Okay, now go back here and open this auth store. Now you can see null over there, and then that data should not be coming, right? So that was the issue. Let me refresh the page once more, and I'll show you if that is working fine. And you yourself can also refresh the page multiple times. If there is any issue, please let me know, and we'll try to rectify those issues. So let me refresh this page once more, and I'll just click on this. You can see login is still there. We don't have that book list page, and logout option is there, right? That's cool. This is how it should work. Now next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log in once more. So I'll say zdhusain21@gmail.com, right? And then password, I'm going to type password. So we don't need this now. Let's click on login. We should be able to redirect to this page. that is happening correctly, right? And we should be able to see those book list and logout option. Let me just click logout once more and see if that works completely fine. Okay, I clicked on logged out, but nothing happens, even though we can see the plotter page is routed back to login. Why is that so? So we can see here the things has broken because of some issue. As soon as I click on logged in, there's certain thing which is breaking. That is of course class list, and this class list we are using on components. So let's rectify that. I'm using that on app input. So app input, of course we have that optional chaining over there so that we can omit those issues, right? But still we are facing those issues we should not face, right? So okay, that's not a worry factor, we'll rectify those later, but here actually we should be able to log out. So I'll click logged out once more, nothing happens, and storage and all is cleared. So this is one of the issue. We'll rectify these issues now. And let me just refresh this page. Of course this is working now after refresh. That means there's some piece of code which is getting broken, and because of that this issue is happening. So let me just do this once more. Okay, password. Okay, I'll just click on login. We are successfully logged in, but then from where this is coming, right? There's something happening over there, and we are not able to catch those issues. Cannot use property of undefined reading class list, and where we are reading class list is of course, let's search for that class list, right? So we are reading class list in the app input itself. So even though we are using optional chaining, but somehow it is not working, right? But then where we are missing the optional chaining? Is there any specific scenario? No, we don't have any specific scenario. So what I will do here is I'll say okay, let's put this inside a condition. If that is the case, then only we are going to use this class list. So here I'll put input will be there always, and here I'll put just element. If that is the case, then only I'm going to use this, or else I'm not going to use this. Let me just take this out of this so that I can copy it and reuse this variable. So I'll just copy it, then fine, I'll use it everywhere. Here let's say if that is the case, then only we are going to use this class list. I'll say okay, let's go up. Fine, now here also I'm going to do the same thing. If that is the case, then only I'm sorry, then only I'll just call this class list functionality, and here also I'm going to do the same thing so that we can make sure there's no error. That's completely legal now, that's completely fine. Let me save it and go back to UI, and we'll test this once more if that is working completely fine. I will just put refresh, and there's no issue. Now let me click on logout. Again we have issue over there, and this issues shows that we are doing something wrong. So let me just rectify these issues, and meanwhile if you want to rectify as well, you can of course go through this issue and rectify this. And because of this only we are not able to remove this page from here, and because of this only it's not working completely fine. So we'll meet you in the next videos. Meanwhile I will try to rectify these issues, and I will let you know how we can rectify these issues. Thank you guys, and we'll meet in the next video.